Good
Nope.
afternoon, everybody. I'm here with Chris Pappas of Green Forest Surveys. He's going to tell us a little bit about his business, how he got started in surveying, what he's working on now, and show us, some projects that he's been working on, and talk about the future of his company going forward. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Adam. Yeah,
yes,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself and give everybody a little bit of background on yourself, and then we'll dive into the rest of it.
Sounds good. I've been surveying since about 1992. I was going to be a forester or an engineer, couldn't really decide because I like math and I like being outside. And then I had an opportunity to work for my uncle for a summer, and he's a surveyor. And once I had figured out that you can actually be outside and use math and just combining everything together, it just really clicked with me. Um, so I decided to change over what I was going to school for into surveying, and that led me down the path to where I am now. I went out west to New Mexico to get away from the East Coast for a little while and experience something new. And then back then, there was only a few schools that had surveying as a 4-year degree, so I decided, get that 4-year degree, and it's that way. No matter what the requirements were for the state, I would be able to get whatever license I wanted to. And I got went to New Mexico State down in Las Cruces, got my 4-year surveying engineering degree down there, and then worked out there for a while until I got my license out there. Met a woman, had some kids, came back to Virginia to get some grandparent support, and uh, and then started working with my uncle again when I moved back, and then eventually got my surveying license in Virginia about 2005, I believe, maybe 2004. And then from then on, I ran my own branch of a surveying office of Green Forest Surveys back then, and did multiple other things over the years, but eventually settled, and now I'm owner of Green Forest Surveys, and working on the East Coast and the mountainous terrain out here, and it's been great. I love working in the meets and bounds states, and I love working in the public land states. They both have their benefits and pitfalls, I guess, too.
Yeah. That's awesome that you've worked in kind of both sides of the US, because we do it so different over here than they do on the other side. And you've got that experience. And working with your uncle, I knew him well. So you come up under some good guidance and
Yeah.
maybe under the whip a little bit too.
Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely taught me good ways and bad ways to do things, professionally and privately. uh,
That's
but he was a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So how's business these days? It's the springtime in Virginia, and everything's starting to look like the picture in your background back
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's obviously winter time's the time to get out and go do it, but we do it year round. Doesn't matter
yeah.
what the temperature or the vegetation is. So how's things looking right now for surveying?
They're great. I mean, I just today I got 5 new jobs, and I need to quit saying yes. That's a heck of a problem for us surveyors. We never want to say no, but
Well, you got to have something for that next generation to do. You know,
yeah,
you've got
yeah, yeah.
Chance and
Speak
Jasper there that are helping you
exactly.
out, and you're
Speaking
raising
of,
raising the next generation of surveyors. So
yeah,
that's tremendous.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, from what I've learned from Steve, I'm passing it on to my kids. Both my sons work for me. Yeah, Chance and Jasper. And
The
they
good and the
are
bad.
say again, the good and the
The
bad.
good and the
Yes.
bad.
Yes, the good and the bad. Yeah. I'm showing the full gambit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. And taking on too much work because I know that there's 3 of us now. Mm.
That's
Uh
that's awesome.
Yeah,
So
but yeah, out here on the East Coast, it's I try to like I'm trying to model my business to stick to large boundaries and the wooded areas because I know that I can perform in those areas based off the tools I'm using now way better than my competition in the area. A lot of the competition are using total stations and older GPS units that cannot go into canopy at all. And so I'm using the tools that I'm using now have changed my business model, and I'm going after these large like boundaries in forested areas, which is 90% of what I do out here. And it's worked really well. We're keeping the pipeline full, and we're getting a lot of jobs done.
well, and those are the fun jobs too. I mean, when
Yeah,
you're hiking up on the top of a mountain up there, you're kind of in the valley, but you got mountains all around you, and
yeah,
you're hiking up a mountain, 500 feet of elevation change, maybe more,
yeah. They're
in
they're
1,500 feet.
they're fun to think back on. Doing it at the time, you're like, oh, what did I do this for?
Yeah, should have brought more water with me.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's cool. The picture in the background there, that's that
Yeah,
same terrain that you work in. It's
yeah.
very mountainous, and to traverse down through there, you're really, really
Oh,
working
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, this particular image behind me, I've kind of artist art made it an oil painting kind of, but it's an actual based on an actual photo, and it's down in a steep valley, and I that there's an actual iron like on the ground underneath that tree, and it was about 1,200 feet of walking into gnarly woods to get to that spot, and I didn't have to cut line. I didn't have to worry about connectivity. I was able to get to that spot and collect that point. It took about 20-30 minutes to get that point, but that's because I shot it a couple times and made sure it was a good point before I left.
How long would you say it would have taken if you would have traversed up there? Say if you would have taken Chance and Jasper and had them as, field crew out there with you, and you had to traverse up the mountain to get to it. How long would that have taken you?
Um, at least at least a day, a full
And
day.
I want to be clear. You're not just hopping over there to you're not jumping out of a helicopter and landing on the corner and shooting it. You're walking the line as you go up through there. So
Yeah,
you're collecting evidence as you go, fence post,
yeah. Finding that old barbed
anything
wire.
encroachments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you actually get to spend more time looking for that stuff because of the workflows that you have now than you did when you was worried about getting around the traverse and getting it closed by time to go home.
Exactly. Like this particular setup right here, I set it. Well, at first I didn't find this iron. At first I found some evidence of where the iron might be, and I started collecting that evidence with the unit. And while it was collecting data, I was wandering around looking for evidence because it was doing its thing. I call it cooking, and basically just collecting data on a fence line going through a tree, basically. And I know there's like a little creek down in the bottom here. And see you guys later. My crew's leaving now. um,
See you, Chance. See you, Jasper.
yep. But yeah, while I was collecting data, I was able to wander around and kind of tie flagging on some of this old fence line to visualize where it's come together, and it helped me find this iron because there was a little bit of metal on the ground. The metal detector was picking up all kinds of stuff, and and being able to have the time to sit and look while it's still collecting data was a great benefit actually.
Yes, that's so true, so true. So your field crew just left for today.
Yeah.
Chance and Jasper. You want to talk about them a little bit, or
Yeah,
kind of?
I can. Yeah.
Let us know how you're integrating them into your business, and
Yeah.
they're young kids, and they're learning this stuff, and I think it's
Oh,
great.
yeah. So Chance, he's the oldest. He's 23 now, and Jasper's just about to turn 21. And Jasper used to live in New Mexico until just recently, and he's finally moved back out. Um, Kind of integrating them with my business. I'm looking at their personalities and figuring out what their strengths are and their weaknesses, and trying not to. I'll push them. I'll push some of their weaknesses so they get stronger, but I'm not gonna push them into like Jasper's more of an office mentality. He still will go out into the field and everything, but he's not as good at the field work. Chance has worked for me for 2 years now, and he's much better at the field work and is used to being out there slugging through the wilderness. So I'm using them both for their own strengths and trying to find what they like to do too, so that I can nurture that and get them into this. Yeah,
And if you like what you do,
yeah,
you never work a day in your life.
exactly,
So
exactly.
that's and you've got a good team going on there.
Yeah,
So that's very commendable. What about project? You have any projects that you could show us that you've been working on, and kind of
yeah,
give us an idea of what you've been doing?
yeah. There was a project. So one thing I've been using my drafting software and the equipment for is to basically create these. It's kind of a marketing material. It's like I'll do the basic boundary plat, but I'm also creating extra benefit for the client so that I don't have to rewalk the boundary with them. So one of the jobs that I did recently, I created this Google Earth boundary. I exported my boundary layer to Google Earth. It's on state plane coordinates, and then I've exported my points from the JAVAD unit where I've attached photos of the points, and I'll take a photo of like the actual monument, and then I'll try to step back and take a photo of the instrument over the monument and kind of give the client a perspective of where that monument is, what to look for, what it looks like, things like that. And then they can use their cell phone and get kind of close and then look for my flagon hanging in the trees, and then they can go, oh, that looks just like his photo. Yeah.
And it saves you time and money too.
Yeah.
We don't really get paid for that
No,
after the survey walk unless you count it in on the front side. But you
exactly.
know that's
Yeah.
going to save them some money, and
And
years from now
a
they'll
lot
be
of
able to
people
look
like
back
it,
at it.
but you can tell some of the clients, if they say, well, I don't really use email, then you probably shouldn't send them a Google Earth file. But some clients are really computer savvy and really are into the information you're telling them. So it's really helpful for them to have some of this information. So I mean, if you want, I can show the plat I used and some of that other information. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, let me pick the right screen here. All right. How's that looking? Can you see it?
Looks good, Chris.
Oh,
I
okay.
think for the representation it'd be fine.
Yeah, okay. So basically, this is the plat I got from the courthouse. I used my JAVAD unit and I put in all the bearings and distances, and then went to the field and just paid attention to what monuments I was looking for and stuff like that. Found a few of the monuments, translated and rotated the boundary to those points that I found, and then was able to complete the rest of the survey and created this Google Earth boundary. And basically, that that darker blue line is basically just the flood line actually through there. So ignore that. Um, but here's the terrain that I was surveyed in for this thing. It is some steep country, and it's
You're
got
right down in the holler. That's what they call in the holler.
in the holler for sure,
Yeah.
So these points are directly exported from the JAVAD unit, and they automatically attach the photos to the points. So when you export from the JAVAD unit, you just need to create a folder that you can put all the photos in, and it will, and I'll just double click on one of these points. So there is basically, it's a drill hole, and I used a little mag nail to point to the drill hole with some flagging on it, and then afterwards I put the mag nail in the hole. And then below here is my JAVAD unit set up over the point, and it shows like basically where I was in the creek and some of the terrain around that spot.
Straight up and down cliffs.
Yeah, it was a deep canyon. Let's see. I think this other one, yeah, okay. This other one is it was an iron underneath a tree on the bank of the creek here. And you can see it, setting on the iron, and then you can see the trees kind of over top of the unit here, and you can see how much foliage and canopy there was around what I was shooting. But I was able to do this whole boundary in a day. Actually, about 6 hours total from me getting the plat, putting everything in, and then running around, finding all the corners and flagging them up. Fortunately, I found everything. That was really nice. I love that. That's a rarity.
So how many acres is that? Just so everyone listening can have a perspective of I mean, and that's very, very steep terrain, very rough.
Yeah, it was 14
Virginia
acres.
mountain country. 14 acres.
14 acres. Yeah.
And how did your collections check to the plat here?
Tight, very tight. And I do work on state plane, and I did not transfer this to. I did not convert the to ground. I used just the plat, but everything was so close to each other that the scale factor was negligible. It was thousands, but because I think the longest line was 600 foot, maybe, or 500 foot. So it was, very negligible.
Very cool.
Yeah. And
14 acres in mountain country. That's pretty good.
yeah, and it was very steep, and the only thing that helped me like get through it all was I mean, really just using that. I didn't have to chop any line, and using that JAVAD unit just saved my butt. I didn't. I mean, it led me right to the points. It was great. It was a great piece of equipment, and it's totally changed the way I survey now. Used to be where I'd go out and recon, try to find the site between Google Earth, the CAD software that I have, and using this equipment, I can actually go to the site with everything calculated. And I guess I can quit sharing the screen now. Yeah.
Recon is kind of a word of the past now because we do our recon while we're doing our collection.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the point of walking there and finding the monument if you don't have a tool to survey it in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why you're able to do 14 acres in mountain country in 6
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And bigger jobs. I've done 40 to 50 acres in a day as well, but they're not as many corners as that. It'd be maybe 5, 6 corners.
But it's all terrain dependent. And
Yeah.
what are you following behind as far as, the record documents? And,
Yeah.
is it in polls and from the 1920s, or is it, a surveyor that, does very, very good work and you're not going to have any trouble? Sounds like this guy you followed behind was probably a pretty good surveyor.
Yeah.
That's
When
good.
you see his plats, you're gonna find some of the monument or most of the monuments. Yeah.
Yeah. No headaches. You're going to find what he says is on there, and if it's gone, something's happened.
Exactly.
He just
Exactly.
didn't. He said it.
Yeah.
It maybe walked away.
Yep. Our neighbor got a little fishy,
Cool.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you do some stuff with Virginia Association of Surveyors.
Yeah.
You're a chapter president of the Western chapter
Yeah. I
currently.
am.
You was
And
president of New Mexico's Surveyors Association.
yeah, I was. I was.
You want to
Yeah.
talk a little more about some of that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I try to give back to the surveying profession. I've been member of state societies, New Mexico, Virginia, throughout my career. Um, Constantly trying to pass on anything that I know to anybody that'll listen, I guess. um, when I was out in New Mexico, I worked with the New Mexico State University, trying to uh, keep their surveying department alive down there. And now that I'm in Virginia, I'm working with East Tennessee State University, and I teach a lab once a semester for them about GNSS equipment, and constantly trying to raise money for them so that they can go to. Recently, we raised, just from the Western chapter, we raised $1,500 to send them to the National Society of Professional Surveyors, like, student competition that happened just last week. And then they're going to come to our state society coming up here pretty soon. They're going to we raise some money for them with help with a Southern chapter and the Virginia Foundation. Uh, Raised a bunch of money to help them come out to our state society chapter meetings and stuff like that, or conference, not chapter meeting. But and it's great. I mean, they network with everybody. They get to see, where the adult, or not adult, but further along in their profession, the surveyors, what they're doing, what passions they have, get to network with them, and they get job offers every time they come. Yeah.
And
So
your willingness to go and represent the professions, I haven't seen any better. You're going to be in Orlando this summer at
yeah,
the
yeah,
FIG.
yeah. I'm actually excited. It's going to be the first time they're going to have a international Federation International Geomaticists in Florida. It's going to be in conjunction with the National Society of Professional Surveyors. And I've got Chance and Jasper going with me. We're going to go down, and it's uh, going to be thousands of surveyors from around the world in two hotels. They've rented out completely two hotels in Orlando, Florida, full of surveyors, and the exhibit hall is going to be like all the top line equipment and everything. So it's going to be really neat to see.
We'll have a booth there as well. The JAVAD GNSS will be there, and you
Awesome.
can stop by and see Chris. He'll be hanging out there too. And Chris is an agent of mine. Chris,
Yeah.
gave you some background on how he become to use the JAVAD equipment through his uncle, and I asked Chris to be an agent for me, and he's helped me so much, and he's handling most of the Mid Atlantic region. Um, so you want to talk a little bit about your history with
Sure.
JAVAD?
Yeah, 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 definitely. So when I moved back to Virginia, I worked with my uncle, and he had some JAVAD equipment, and we'd actually used some Ashtec Pro Mark IIs before that. But he started with the T2 and a LS, and this thing over my head here is an LS. And that basically, when I was helping him, I had to learn it like it's like being thrown in the fire. You got to learn it like on the job, and find all the downfalls and all the quirks and the bugs and everything to work out. And through that process, I learned it so well that I was able to actually, I mean, you approached me to become an agent because I was able to teach my uncle how to troubleshoot it. So if I can teach him, I can teach anybody. So, and so once I started using it more and more, I mean, it's just increased the productivity in our company by at least 40-50% over what we were doing before, and it's actually more accurate than what we were doing before as well. So just all this learning the equipment and getting better at just knowing where all the settings are and being able to visualize where all the pages are and stuff in my head. Yeah, it's helped a lot with the equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and you've done well. You're well known, well respected in your area, in our profession. You're going to be at the Virginia conference, like you'd mentioned, coming up next week.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and I want to encourage people to get in touch with you and have a talk with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. That'd be great.
cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Chris. Is there anything else you want to add to this, or you know?
Um, I'm sure I could think of something, but no, not right off the top of my head. No. It was great.
Well,
It
it's
was
been a
great talking with
pleasure.
you.
It's
Yeah.
been a pleasure, and
Yeah.
hope to maybe do a follow up meeting at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll interview some local guys for you.
That
That'd
would
be
be
good.
really good.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
good.
awesome.
Well, you know, keep your boots muddy and keep your trucks unstuck.
Yep. Yep. And you don't need to keep your bush axe sharpened because you don't need it anymore.
Unless you got to kill a snake or something like
Well,
that.
go. All right. Well, take care. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.